Hello everyone, going to be going over the GSSR banners for New Year's 2025 on JP here. We're going to rate things on a scale of fantastic to poor, with mediocre and decent being in the middle of those. So first up we have this one. I would say it's a mediocre to decent banner, with the prize being Skaha above all. I would say that this is a decent banner. All of these servants are pretty solid in their respective roles in the game. I would call this a mediocre banner, where there are some nice standouts like Benienma, Artoria Archer, Cheeky, and Narrow. They're all solid servants. They aren't game-breaking or account-defining, but they are solid nonetheless. I would call this banner decent. Durga, Melusine, and Yamato are all very solid. I don't have much experience with Trun Sisters, but they're probably a solid enough single target saber option if you do not have that good of options currently available in your Chaldea. I would call this GSSR poor. The big prize here is Musashi. Musashi is a very good single target saber. Excuse me. Ishtar is a solid enough buster archer, but there are a lot of buster archers in this game there, and Ishtar is kind of lagged behind as she has not gotten a skill upgrade or anything in many years, although her NP is upgraded, so she deals decent enough damage. Tamamo Lancer and Brynhild, there are better single target Lancers available. I would call this a decent banner. Melusine, Romulus Queerness, and Ereshkigal are all very good AoE Lancer options, with Melusine being the best out of all of them, but Ereshkigal is quite solid with her new skill upgrade that she got, and just a nice anti-earth niche. I would call this mediocre to poor. If you really need a single target assassin, this is probably one of your best options, since Mysterious Heroine Exalter can also stand in as a single target assassin if need be, being a Zerk. But yeah, it's just a bit too diluted of a pool with 5 servants. I would call this a decent banner. Europa, and Andromeda is a tank, and tanks aren't really the best thing, but the other 3 are all very good servants, with Alice, Huyan Zhou, and Senno Rikyu all being quite solid, quick options. I would call this a poor banner. There isn't much incentive to roll on this, and I would avoid it unless you really want multiple of the characters on it. The gameplay of the servants on this banner is limited in scope. There isn't much utility to be gained on this banner. I will call this banner fantastic. Castoria, Berserker, Musashi Berserker, and Ibuki Berserker, they're all amazing servants. Bakken is the dud here, but the positives of the other 3 far outweigh that, with Castoria Berserker probably being the top prize, but the other 2 AoE arts options are solid enough. I would call this banner poor. It isn't... Nothing really stands out here as someone you need to have in your Chaldea. If you have multiple of the targets you want in here, it's okay, but it's not that fantastic. I will call this one fantastic, with the exception of Semiramis. All the servants are X-tier servants. They're all amazing. With the exception of Semiramis, who desperately needs buffs, but who knows if they'll buff Semiramis this next Annie or sometime else. This banner is fantastic. Miss Crane is the worst out of all of these, but if you get any of the other three and you don't have any of them, I would highly recommend rolling on this banner as one of your 2 selections. They're all staple support units that are exceptionally good. I will call this one mediocre to decent. It has Melt and Doman, 2 very, very good options in the Alter Ego department. Tyra is solid enough. Karen is kind of a good quick farmer, but Jax is just bad. I would say leaning decent here above everything else. With this one, I will also say decent, because Hibiki, Gazura Drop, Summer Skadi, they're all very fine servants, with Summer Skadi being a nice support unit, necessary for quick looping. I think this one is mediocre. It's a lot of arts loopers that aren't really having a great time. Yan Guifei is a very solid servant after her buff, and just a nice single target option, and Kiara is probably the best of the other 3 for challenge quests and such. Similarly, this one I will also call mediocre, because it's a lot of arts loopers yet again, semi-support and Popus Johanna, and the crown is Melusine Ruler here, but there's a lot of arch loopers. You don't necessarily need them, and if you were going to go for an arch looper, I think you'd be better going for that banner earlier on with Ibuki Zerker and Musashi Zerker. This is a decent banner. All of these options are very new servants with very modern kits, and yeah, it's hard to go wrong with this one. Kenshin is not the best single target arts, but she is quite serviceable if you don't have a high NP level on Estrella. I will also call this one decent. Abby, Jean, Alter, and BB Summer are all very good. Okita, Alter is alright. Not the greatest, not the worst, but decent. It's a decent banner overall. I will also call this one decent. Nobunaga, King Protea, Summer Abbey, and Summer Bunny Toria. They're all serviceable servants now, I would say. With our Bunny Toria's recent upgrade, she is quite a bit better, although she could still use some more upgrades in my eyes, namely an NP upgrade, but the rest are all very solid. King Protea is probably the best servant here, after all the buffs she has received over the years. I will also say that this one is decent. Kulkan, Arcwade, Koya, and Dark are all the targets that you should be aiming for in this banner. Super Bunyan is better after her recent buff, but still not the greatest alter ego or anything, but decent. This is a quite the solid banner overall. I will say this one is fantastic. Phantas-moon, Ciel, and Tiamat are all X-tier servants in my eyes. They are exceptionally powerful, and any of them being added to your Chaldea will improve it immensely. Unless you have all of them NP5 already, of course. I will say this one is mediocre. The targets here in my eyes is Van Gogh number 1, Bizet number 2. Himiko is kind of solid for the Immortal team, and King Shi Wan is he's okay, he's mediocre. He's not the best, he's not the worst. He's just somewhere in the middle. But Van Gogh is an exceptionally good servant if you want a foreigner support or other existence outside the domain servants. Van Gogh is excellent there. This one, I will say, is fantastic. Again, we have BB and Alco, both very good servants, and Lady Avalon is definitely the best servant here as another Merlin. But for arts, she is exceptionally good in farming and challenge content. I will say that this one is mediocre. You don't really need any of these servants realistically. You could even say that this is a bad banner. Like, Charlemagne is good after his recent buff, to be sure, but Takasugi is just alright. Same with the Sulfur Saber. This one, again, mediocre. It's a pretty large pool of servants. I think the best ones here are Ptolemy and Yamato. The rest are forgettable and nothing to write home about. I will say that this one is mediocre as well. You would probably roll this one if you really wanted Gilgamesh, since Arthur and Moriarty are not the greatest servants. This one I'll say this one is decent. Sigurd is the worst servant here, but the other two are quite solid overall, and definitely improve your Chaldea. And it's a nice three-way, so that's always nice. When fewer options, you're more likely to hit. This one, Doman is the best servant, then Voyager. Voyager is kind of good after his upgrade. I don't use him myself, but I can see why you would. And Dante's, he's kind of fallen off as a quick looper over the years, even after his buffs and such. It's a rough road for him, so I will say that this one is mediocre. This one is also mediocre. The prize here is Monte Cristo, by far the best servant here. Actually, you could almost call this one decent. Like, Tyra is still really good. Wangina is okay. Wangina isn't very exciting, but Monte Cristo and Tyra are both very, very solid, respectable servants. This one, I would say that this one is decent. Moriarty is better after his recent buff. Same with Rasputin. Rasputin's buff is very nice, and Tezcatlipoca is just a very nice multi-core servant who does a lot of things. And being a 3 servant GSSR is always a nice plus. This one, I'll say it's decent. Amakusa isn't really that exciting. Kentoki is quite good in multi-core setups just to clear a wave. He is one of the main ones used to clear single enemy waves in farming, and Iskandar is at least better after he got his recent buff, so he can Buster Loop and do quite a bit of damage in a multi-core setup. He can also do really good one-turn damage. This one I will also say is decent. Yvonne is an exceptionally good rider. I would say he's the best Buster AoE rider, even with Iskandar getting buffed, because he has a lot more utility in his kit than Iskandar does. And First Hassan, also pretty decent as a single target assassin option. And Hijikata is kind of a niche servant, but he can do some work depending on the challenge scenario or story content. This one is definitely fantastic. I would say Shingen is the worst of the 3 by a lot. Like, it is not close. You really want Arjuna Alter or Oberon out of this banner. If you don't have Oberon, this is one of the best chances ever for Oberon in the GSSR. Usually he's crowded in with other extra servants and such, but here it's a 3-way split, and you'll be happy with Arjuna Alter or Oberon. Either of those are very, very good, and Shingen has some utility. He's not exactly exciting. If he got an MP upgrade, he might be very exciting with the triple Buster deck. This one I will say is decent. Merlin, Constantine, excuse me, and Super Orion, they're all very good servants. King Shi Wan, not exciting. Holmes is very invaluable in some certain challenge quest scenarios where ignoring defense and ignoring invuln, or excuse me, it is ignoring invuln, sorry about that, is invaluable. But the main prize here is getting Merlin. Merlin is an exceptionally good servant, especially after he got buffed. And that'll do it for all the GSSR banners for New Year's 2025. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and found it somewhat informative. This is my opinion, and Happy New Year, everyone.